By the roots of a twisted old tree in the deep forest, a young gnome lived with his father, a skilled shoemaker. Their home was carved from a giant mushroom, complete with doors, windows, and a chimney. As summer turned to autumn, the forest grew busy in preparation for winter. This was acorn season, the busiest time of year, when every creature, large and small, hurried to earn as many acorns as they could. For they could trade acorns for whatever they might need in the long, snowy months ahead. Urdu every day, the young gnome helped his father stitch, hammer, and polish shoes. To attract more business, the young shoemaker painted a sign in red and gold letters, "Shoemaker Extraordinaire." His father placed it beside their mushroom door with pride. "Who could resist this?" he said. The young gnome's friend, Singing Ant, fluttered about the forest, encouraging everyone with her cheerful songs. "Come on, hurry up, winter is coming. The ice will be cold, and the snow will be numbing." One crisp morning, Papa Gnome said, "I'm off to gather shoe supplies. If any customers come, I know you'll take good care of them. I'll be back in 3 days." "Don't worry, Papa," said the young gnome. "You can count on me." After his father left, the young gnome had another idea. He'd play his reed flute outside the mushroom house, and this way attracts even more customers. Piping a bright tune on his flute, the young gnome couldn't help but imagine the acorns he would earn while his father was away. "Papa will be so surprised when he comes back and sees all the acorns I earned." Suddenly, the ground shook. From the shadows emerged a long, many-legged creature, a centipede, longer than a garden hose. "So," the creature hissed, eyeing the sign. "Shoemaker Extraordinaire." "At your service," said the young gnome with a bow. "How can I help you?" "I am Centipede," the creature announced. "And I require shoes for the winter." The young gnome could not believe it. His heart racing, he asked, "Exactly how many shoes will you require?" 50 pairs, said the centipede. "No more, and no less." "F50. The young gnome's voice cracked. Centipede's eyes narrowed. "What's wrong? Are you not up to the task, Shoemaker Extraordinaire?" "Of course I am." The gnome recovered, standing as tall as he could. "Then it's settled," Centipede said. "You have 3 days. I'll return on the 4th morning to pick up my order. But beware," he leaned in, his breath hot. "If my shoes are not ready, you will know the sting of a centipede's bite." The young gnome swallowed hard but kept his voice steady. "That will be 50 acorns, please. 1 acorn per pair." "I can count," snapped the centipede. The young gnome took some quick measurements of the centipede's feet. Then the creature turned his green head and slithered off into the underbrush. The young gnome's heart pounded with excitement and terror. He had to make 100 shoes in just 3 days. But think of it, 50 acorns. "I'd better start right away," he muttered, rushing inside to gather his hammer, nails, and leather. Just then, Singing Ant fluttered by. "My, you look busy. Shall I sing while you work?" Music always makes tasks go faster. "Not now," said the gnome, in a sharper tone than he intended. "I have to make 100 shoes in 3 days. Taken aback, Singing Ant sang softly as she turned to leave, "Goodbye for now, dear gnome friend true, but if you need me, I'll help you." The young gnome barely heard her, already lost in focus. He worked furiously all day, his fingers flying and his hammer singing. Yet when darkness fell, he counted only 8 finished pairs of shoes. Holding his head in his hands, the gnome moaned. 8 pairs of shoes after a whole day. At this rate, I'll have to work day and night without stopping. Then, like a thunderbolt, another problem struck him. He couldn't work through the night without light, and the tiny cooking fire barely illuminated the stove. Where could he get light? But of course, he realized. "I must see the Firefly Queen. She has the brightest lantern in the entire forest. Surely she won't mind lending it to me for just a few days. I'll even pay her an acorn." Young Gnome threw on his coat and grabbed his reed flute. He never liked to travel without it, and hurried to the marshlands, where the Firefly Queen had last been seen. "Good evening, Your Majesty," he said, bowing politely when he found her. The Firefly Queen, busy inspecting the outside of a tree hollow, frowned and did not turn around. "Can't you see I'm busy? What do you want?" "Well, I came to offer you a deal." "A deal?" The Firefly Queen turned. She brought her lantern close to the gnome's face. A magnificent creature she was, twice the size of ordinary fireflies, with wings that shimmered like stained glass. "Your Majesty," said the gnome, "if you would only lend me your lantern for 3 days, I would gladly pay you 1 acorn." "Ridiculous," she snapped. "Lend my precious lantern to a stranger? Never. I need it to properly examine this old oak hollow to see if it's right for my winter home." The gnome pleaded, "Please. I'll give you 2 acorns. I wouldn't lend my lantern for 10 acorns. The queen flew into the hollow oak to inspect its walls and ceiling. When she emerged she said, "Oh, you're still here. Well, no matter, this hollow will be perfect for my winter home. I'll leave my lantern here as a sign that it's occupied while I fetch my belongings." She set the glowing lantern on a root and flew away into the darkness. As soon as she disappeared, the young gnome was struck by a thought. She doesn't need this lantern anymore, she already found her winter home. I'm the one who needs it. He grabbed the lantern, ran off, and didn't stop until he reached his mushroom house. There he hung the lantern from the ceiling and began to hammer away. "I already lost a lot of time in getting the lantern, but if I work all night long I can probably make at least 8 more pairs of shoes." By dawn, 16 pairs were ready, sanded and polished. With 2 full days remaining, he felt certain he could complete the order if he could just work straight through without stopping. But exhaustion overcame him, and he slumped asleep. Singing Ant's voice woke him. "Oh, the news, the news. Have you heard the terrible news?" "What is it?" said young Gnome, hoping that whatever the news was, she would tell him quickly and be on her way so he could return to work. "Someone has stolen the Firefly Queen's lantern," said Singing Ant. "All the forest is in a panic." The young gnome's heart froze. "Does anyone know who did it?" said Singing Ant. "Nobody knows." As soon as he was alone again, the young gnome returned to work, but he couldn't shake the thought about the Firefly Queen and her missing lantern. Still, he kept working through the 2nd day and into the 2nd night. As the 3rd day dawned, the young gnome could neatly stack 32 pairs of shoes. He needed to make only 18 more pairs that day and night, and the order would be ready on time. The young gnome didn't see Praying Mantis approach. The spindly creature looked so much like a blade of grass that he would have been hard to notice even if the young gnome hadn't been busy at work. Praying Mantis cleared his throat. He said in a gravelly voice, "I've come to ask if you know anything about the theft." The gnome turned. His eyes widened. "Why would I know anything about it?" Praying Mantis swayed gently, his large eyes shifting. "It could be anyone. Anyone at all." "What are you saying?" "Nothing. Only that I may have noticed at the Firefly Queen's winter house a long trail of footprints leading right here, to this very mushroom house." "Yes, oh," young gnome stuttered. "I was there just the other day visiting her." "Nothing more?" "Yes," said Praying Mantis. "The poor queen grows weaker by the hour. She cannot eat or drink in sorrow for her loss. The entire forest fears she could perish any moment. If she dies, all the fireflies will lose their lights. What will we do all winter on those long, moonless winter nights?" Praying Mantis stared long and hard at young Gnome. Then he shook his head and crept away. Alone again, the young gnome began to tremble. If the Firefly Queen dies, it will be because of me. But his deadline was coming up. I must finish this order on time. If I don't, the centipede, and Papa would know I failed. To settle the matter, he resolved to return the lantern immediately, as soon as the centipede picked up his order. Yet another thought nagged at the corners of his mind. What if tomorrow is too late for the Firefly Queen? The young gnome sighed. He took the lantern off its hook on the ceiling, tucked it under his arm, and trudged toward the winter home of the Firefly Queen. Taking a turn on the path, he found himself face to face with Singing Ant. When she saw what he was carrying, she gasped. "What do I see? What do I see?" It was young Gnome who took the light from the tree. "Oh, but..." And he cried out in a torrent of words, "I'm returning it to her right now. I needed it to finish the centipede's order. Now I won't be able to finish the order anyway. And who knows what will it come from me? But what else can I do?" Singing Ant twitched her antennae. "Young Gnome, I know you have a good heart, let's make things right and have a fresh start." She called out, and a glow of fireflies arrived. One pointed to the young gnome. "That's the Queen's lantern. He's the one who took it." "Yes," said the young gnome, hanging his head. He tried to explain, but the more he talked, the more he realized how it must all sound to them. Yet the fireflies listened and somehow seemed to understand. Singing Ant called out again. This time, a swarm of ants hurried down the path. She said urgently to them, "Quick! Carry this lantern back to the Firefly Queen." The ant brigade hoisted the precious lantern and scurried off. Singing Ant faced the fireflies. "We must help our friend finish his shoes tonight." They nodded in a low buzz. As night fell, the fireflies filled the mushroom house with light. Working in a mad frenzy, the gnome stitched and hammered until he finally finished the last shoe as dawn of the fourth day broke. Then came the whooshing of 100 feet. Centipede appeared, dragging behind him a bulging sack. "Well," he boomed. "Where are my shoes?" Young Gnome presented all 50 pairs. Centipede tried on each one. With a grunt he said, "Harumph. These will do." He dropped the sack of 50 acorns at the gnome's feet and clattered away. "I never could have finished without your light," young Gnome said, addressing the fireflies. Then he added, "You know what? The Firefly Queen should have these acorns, not me. I shouldn't have taken her lantern in the first place." He dragged the sack of acorns to the Firefly Queen's winter home. So, the Firefly Queen hovered before him, completely recovered now that her lantern was returned. "You are the one who took my light." "Yes, Your Majesty," said the young gnome, staring at his boots. "I don't know what I was thinking." "I know exactly what you were thinking," snapped the Firefly Queen. "You were thinking of yourself." The young gnome's face flushed red. He pushed forward the sack of acorns. "Please take these acorns. There are 50 of them. They're yours." 50 acorns? The Queen paused. "I heard you were headed to return the lantern to me, even though your job was not complete. Is that true?" He nodded. She said. "I'll tell you what I will do. I am going to keep half the acorns, that is more than enough. There is only one other thing I wish I had." "What's that, Your Majesty?" "Some music to work by." The young gnome brightened. "That's no problem." He whipped out his reed flute. "What do you like?" The young gnome played all of the Firefly Queen's favorite tunes on his reed flute, and she busied about her new winter home, humming along. Moral lesson: admitting your mistakes and making them right is a sign of true courage. Helpfulness and honesty will always guide you through difficult times.
Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.